ladder match, an invitation for gawkers to be spellbound and stupefied, and a resignation for the participants to accept high standards and higher pains. The very idea of a ladder match dates back close to 50 years, but it wasn't until 1992 that the Stairway to Glory made its way to a WWE arena for the first time. After that, ladders made the occasional appearance on the national stage before becoming a more regular fixture in WWE's bag of gimmick matches. We remember a number of these ladder matches for specific reasons. Shawn and Razor because it set the standard, the WrestleMania 2000 ladder match because it evolved expectations of the match and for further elevating 6 talented young wrestlers, Guerrero versus Mysterio because custody of a child was at stake. Okay, that might not be the most shining example, but I mean we do remember it. Point being, some ladder matches burrow deep into the foundation of wrestling lore, so much so that fans of all walks quickly recall them when you ask, what's a great ladder match? This video will go beyond those expected answers and pay a little more tribute to some ladder matches that are a little less appreciated than they should be. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are 10 underappreciated WWE ladder matches. Join us. Number 10, Bret Hart vs. Shawn Michaels, 1992. If you've never heard of this match, chances are you may be thinking, ooh, Bret vs. Shawn in a ladder match? Gimme, gimme! Well, based on what ladder matches of the future entailed, you may want to temper those expectations just a little bit. Once upon a time, ladder matches were rooted less in high-wire stunts and car crash landings, and more in the drama of the climb itself. Hart and Michaels' ladder match doesn't come close to matching the danger of those TLC variants of years ahead. That said, the match is still very, very good if you know what to expect. This ladder match itself was merely a demonstration to Vince as to how the gimmick worked, and was done as a dark match at a July 1992 TV taping for Bret's IC title. On a few occasions, the ladder does get used as a weapon, but again, it's more about trying to beat the other to the punch, being the first to retrieve the suspended title. It's novel enough in 1992 to where fans in Portland, Maine were hanging on every false finish, but it's also understandable how a latter-day fan might not be so enraptured by the action therein. It's still worth a look as a historic curiosity, as a nice reminder that ladder matches, in the kayfabe sense, are about who gets the belt first, not how many pieces of furniture you can set up. Number 9, the Hardy Boyz vs. Edge and Christian, 2000. All 4 men are forever tethered to the very concept of ladder matches. The quartet made the idea of a tag team ladder match famous, just as the match itself made them famous at the 1999 No Mercy, and the bar was only raised from there. Triple ladder matches and TLC followed in the year 2000 with the help of the Dudley Boyz, but when Monday Night Raw moved to TNN in September 2000, it was back to basics. Edge, Christian and the Hardys met on the TNN premiere for the latter's newly won tag team titles in a standard ladder match. While Edge's super spear onto a suspended Jeff Hardy proved to be one of the absolute highlights of WrestleMania X7 the following year, the spot actually debuted here, earning a deserved 1,000,001 double feature replays just after it took place. It may not equal the thrill of the No Mercy battle, nor the furniture-wrecking anarchy of the TLC matches, but this free TV bout is a worthy entry into the shared history of the two teams. With all eyes on Raw following a move to a new network, the WWE was counting on Edge, Christian, Jeff Hardy and Matt Hardy to produce another hard-hitting gem, and that they did. Number 8, the world's greatest tag team versus Eddie Guerrero and Tajiri, 2003. By this time, it was becoming increasingly difficult to top prior madness. Jeff Hardy had splintered enough tables, and the idea of falling from greater heights was becoming less and less feasible. Understandably, ladder matches as a delectable sideshow faded a little bit, as some ladder matches of the period have proved to be less memorable. Take this SmackDown Tag Team title match from the 2003 Judgment Day, featuring Guerrero, as well as 3 men that had no prior experience in ladder matches. What the match lacked in death-defying stunts, it more than made up for with attempts at inspired creativity. A little more emphasis was placed on using the ladders themselves as weapons, including a ladder sandwich spot on Charlie Haas, as well as suplexes and throws into the unforgiving steel objects. Guerrero looks the most comfortable among the fray, hitting frog splashes and sunset powerbombs from higher up on the ladder. In a few years' time, Shelton Benjamin would meld his freakish athleticism with the provided ladders, but here, Haas and Tajiri were just getting their feet wet. Overall, it's a very good match that perhaps didn't need ladders to be enjoyable, but given the inexperience of most of the field, it still comes together well enough. Number 7, the Armageddon 4-Way 2006. It has to be said that the match came together under absurd storyline circumstances. Paul London and Brian Kendrick were set to defend their SmackDown Tag Team titles against William Regal and Dave Taylor when, at the last minute, GM Teddy Long issued some changes. He was giving himself a Christmas gift by adding 2 more teams to the match, player, and by making it a ladder match. This would seem unfair to the scheduled combatants who, theoretically strategized for only each other, but whatever, that's sports entertainment for you. The added teams were the Hardy Boys and M&M, and the match did gain a bit of unintended infamy. That's because Joey Mercury had his face horribly wrecked on a ladder seesaw spot and was immediately rushed to the hospital as a result. That unfortunate accident overshadowed what was an excellent spot fest otherwise, the clear highlight of what had been a pretty fun SmackDown pay-per-view. For their part, Regal and Taylor made like they had no intention of climbing any ladders, while the 6 aerialists went wild in their usual fashion, though Regal did make an attempt before falling victim to Kendrick's sliced bread number 2 from about 3 rungs up. A truly crazy spectacle, but if mangled faces make you feel ill, perhaps it's best to steer clear of this one. Number 6, Chris Jericho vs Shawn Michaels 2008. In a sense, it's hard to call this bout underappreciated. After all, the voting panel of the Wrestling Observer newsletter named it Match of the Year for 2008, so it certainly struck a chord. It all but blew off in the hellacious rivalry between Jericho and Michaels that had raged since the end of spring, punctuating the feud with an absolute killer ending. And yet, for some reason, it doesn't seem to get the copious mention that it deserves. It's a bit of a mystery as to why. The match deviated a bit from the acquired ladder match tropes of the time by being more about the mutual hatred than the expected gymnastics. While Michaels and Jericho are undoubtedly 2 of the most gifted wrestlers to ever set foot inside a ring, and each had bumptastic ladder matches among their prior credits, this was all about revenge. Jericho's World Heavyweight title was on the line, but the belt was rather secondary to the chance to inflict damage. One simple spot sees both men crash to the canvas, upon which Jericho kicks one end of an overturned ladder, sending the other end careening into HBK's bad eye. Y2J also legit lost a tooth during the melee. No Mercy 2008 as a whole is one of WWE's most underappreciated events, so it's fitting that it deserves a brilliant main event that also doesn't get half the love it deserves. Don't get me wrong, it does get love, but it deserves a hell of a lot more. Number 5, Christian vs Shelton Benjamin 2009. No surprise, 2 all-time underappreciated WWE talents fighting for the underappreciated ECW Championship in an underappreciated ladder match. The first ever TLC pay-per-view kicked off with Christian and Benjamin jockeying for the oversized silver medal that was Captain Charisma's ECW title. Not even a mid-match stoppage for an open wound on Christian's face was going to prevent this from being the consensus choice for match of the night, even if the fans in the arena reacted to the wound treating the way weary travelers react to flight delay announcements. Otherwise, it's about what you would expect from a match that involves the 2. Intricate athletics, balancing and finesse from a world-class athlete like Benjamin, and Christian's savvy as a resourceful and cunning babyface. The 2 had faced off in years past when Benjamin was an upstart babyface and Christian a conniving villain, and a role reversal produced their best ever singles match against one another. Even at a time when Benjamin wasn't pushed especially hard, he still looked like Christian's equal between the ropes, and more than exceeded the high expectations of the gimmick match he was placed in. But that's more an indictment on WWE for letting Benjamin slither down the card the way he had. He can still go in 2020, and he damn sure could in 2009 as well. Number 4, John Morrison vs Sheamus 2010. Weeks earlier, Sheamus defeated Morrison to win the sporadically held King of the Ring tournament. But here and now, more important than royal props, a shot at the WWE Championship hung in the balance. The dynamic between the 2 in previous matches centered on pitting Sheamus's strength and his bully-like tendencies against Morrison's valiance and persistence. That sounds like a pretty good story to tell in a ladder match, where the smaller hero can send the monstrous foe to his doom from a great height, and what do you know? They told a pretty damn good story. The ending alone is worth checking this one out for, as Morrison, like Kofi Kingston, had a propensity for defying doom through athletic improvisation, and he employs that resourcefulness in securing the win. Along the way, Sheamus did all he could to wound Morrison's leg to make climbing difficult, once more deferring to that battle of power versus persistence that the 2 are capable of telling so well. While the 2010's TLC 4-way main event earned most of the raves, Morrison and Sheamus's ladder match was certainly in the same neighborhood for match of the night honors Honors and is more than worth a look. Almost inarguably, it's the biggest highlight of Sheamus's forgotten time spent as a cosplaying monarch. Number 3, Christian vs Alberto Del Rio 2011. At this point, we may as well just do a whole video on the 1,000,001 things that Christian did that aren't appreciated enough. You can't really blame anybody for forgetting the specialness of this match, seeing as Christian assumed Edge's mantle as World Heavyweight Champion through this bout, and was days later transplanting the title onto company preference Randy Orton. Boy, if you think fans today find WWE spiteful toward its audience, behold the conspiracy theories that popped up in the week of Extreme Rules 2011. So, Edge vacated the World Heavyweight title a week after WrestleMania 27 due to what was assumed to be career-ending spinal stenosis. The abdicated belt was held up for a ladder match pitting top contender Del Rio against Edge's brother, best friend, lone co-signer, possible organ donor, Christian. The fans in Tampa were soundly behind Christian in what turned out to be an emotionally captivating bout. And that was before Edge drove a Jeep into the arena in opposition to interference from Del Rio flunkies Ricardo Rodriguez and Brodus Clay. The ending and the post-match scene seem to promise this match take place in the pantheon of all-time cathartic WWE moments, a retired Edge functionally passing the torch to his brother from a different mother and longtime closest friend, who seemed to be poised to be SmackDown's new top hero. Then, Orton popped up, and we all know how that went. Number 2, the WrestleMania 33 4-Way 2017. Stop me if you've heard this one before. A tag team title match on a pay-per-view is enhanced by the last-minute addition of the Hardy Boys. Actually, we heard it too. We mentioned such an occurrence about 5 entries ago. Rumors persisted that Matt and Jeff Hardy were WWE bound once more in the weeks before WrestleMania because wrestling fans who claim they love surprises spend their days online reading about and speculating on rumors, and then claim that nothing in wrestling ever surprises them anymore. Weird how that works. But no matter, the Hardys did return at WrestleMania 33 and were last-minute additions to the Raw Tag Team title ladder match with the Good Brothers, The Bar, and Enzo and Cass. And boy, that roar from the Citrus Bowl for that Hardy stock music was quite mighty. More so than just a welcome return, the match itself was excellent, perhaps the best bout of an up-and-down WrestleMania. The Hardy magic was on full display in their familiar elements, and with capable opponents, the title bout had us all nostalgic for those WrestleMania TLC matches of a prior era. Little fun fact, not only did the Hardys hold Tag Team Gold in Impact, Ring of Honor, and WWE within 30 days' time here, but the win here marked Jeff Hardy's first ever WrestleMania victory. Thus, history was made all round. Number 1, The New Day vs. The Revival 2019. 4 months later, the men we now know as Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler received their long-sought releases from WWE. After several years of churning out tag team classics with American Alpha, DIY, and Bobby Roode and Chad Gable, the Revival gave us one last bit of excellence before they ultimately turned the pickup truck around and made the trek to Jacksonville. While ladder matches don't feel like they would be listed among the scripture in the Book of Blanchard, Harwood and Wheeler more than adapted to their metallic surroundings. On a night that couldn't be considered one of WWE's overall finer outings, SmackDown Tag Team Champions The New Day and challengers The Revival did their part to make the 2019 TLC not entirely suck. They did it with a match heavy on the expected spottage, and tremendous spottage it was, including a jaw-dropping springboard DDT from Kofi Kingston. Understandably, given the teams involved, there was plenty of innovation, but also plenty of structure, with zero downtime or tedium across 19 action-packed minutes. While The New Day and The Revival had plenty of matches together, it feels like they only scratched the surface on what could be done together, and this ladder match is a fine indicator of what the 4 or 5 great minds could produce together when given the space and the chance.